The Jacob's Ladder Show is the online radio show keeping you in the loop on the real Las Vegas entrepreneurs, business professionals, artists, actors, creators, entertainers, foreign embassy consuls, and personalities. Join us on the Jacob's Ladder Show with Carolyn and Stephen Jacobs, and listen in on the discussions with these Las Vegas leaders on personal stories and topics like exploits, ventures, anecdotes, career changes, and successes. Now, here's Carolyn and Stephen Jacobs.
And this is Stephen Jacobs. Welcome to the Jacobs Ladder Show. We're here every Tuesday from noon to 1. And you can get us at JacobsLadderShow.com. This show and all of our shows are archived on our website at JacobsLadderShow.com. All you have to do is page down to the bottom, and you will see that this show will be up in a few days. So today we have this segment of our show is brought to you by Barrymore's Fine Dining. Barrymore's on 99 Convention Center Drive. Well, we have a very, very special guest today, Dr. Toni Hart, who in Las Vegas is best known for the Heartland mansion, and Dr. Hart is also an ordained minister, and so she performs weddings at the Heartland mansion, as well as all kinds of events are there. Carolyn and I have been there several times, and Dr. Hart, welcome to the Jacobs Ladder Show.
Thank you very much.
You have led an extremely interesting life.
Yes, I believe I have.
So we're gonna start with the opening question that we start with everybody, and that is, where were you born?
I was born in Dallas, Texas.
And what did your dad do?
My father was an oil man. We called him an oil man. He had big trucks and drivers, and they drove to East Texas to get the gasoline to supply the bus companies in Dallas, Texas. He was very, very well-to-do, hard-working man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and was your mom a stay-at-home mom, or did she also?
She was a stay-at-home mom, and, you know, in those days it was incredible. I didn't think anything about it because I knew nothing about money. I just was concerned about church and music and high school and all that good stuff. But I can remember the days when my dad would come in from the oil fields, and my mom would put $2,000 to $4,000 under her pillow till Monday, till she got to the bank. And that's the days when money meant something. You know, bread was a nickel and milk was a dime. Can you imagine?
Yeah. So you grew up in Dallas then?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And went to high school in Dallas?
I did. I was head cheerleader at the a fabulous technical school. And then, of course, as you may or may not know, I got married very early, very young.
Mm-hmm. And so, how did you meet your husband?
I was a churchgoer, and I was 13 years old, already singing on WRR, WFAA, and KRLD in Dallas, and playing my accordion and everything. And there was an older lady in our big church at 210 East Jefferson, Big Assemblies of God Church. This lady had the ministry of talking and dealing with prisoners. So she asked me if I would come along and play the accordion and sing for the prisoners on Sunday morning before church. So my dad let me borrow the car. My brother taught me to drive. And back in those days, we didn't have driver's license. So that tells you how old I am. But anyway, I would drive to the jail every Sunday morning, 13 years old, carry a 40-pound accordion up 4 flights of steps to meet with this darling lady, and she would preach and I would sing and play the accordion. Then when she became very ill, I took over by myself. And loving church and being in church every time the doors were open, you know, I was very, very happy with the church and the Christian programs. And I attended V.O. Stamp's music school every summer and fell in love, of course. I was already playing the piano, and fell in love with the gospel music, you know. And then I spent one evening going with a young man. He had a convertible, and I said to my mom, I didn't want to go out with him because I really didn't care that much for him. But she said, you never know, you may meet the man of your dreams. So this young man took me to a Baptist church, and it happened to be a wedding reception, a friend of his. And I'm sitting in the audience, and the curtains open on the stage, and out comes the Hart brothers. and that's when I met my husband.
Oh, so he was also musically inclined.
Musician.
Oh, terrific. So apparently there was a meeting and a romance and a marriage. So what did you guys continue to live in Dallas at that time?
Oh yeah, we did. And he told me that it was God's will for us to get married, and I thought I was way too young, and I was 16. And he came to the door that Tuesday evening, and he said, "We're getting married Sunday night." And I said, "You may be, but I'm not." And he said, "Don't worry about it." That was his, through our lifetime, everything he said was, "Don't worry about it."
Don't worry about it.
So he went back through the house to my mom and dad's bedroom, and he asked them to allow me to get married.
Right.
And my mother said the only thing that she was worried about was that when he was run over, a hit-and-run driver hit him and it almost killed him. And it happened to be the owner of the Western Union. It was his son that ran over my husband, who was not my husband at the time,
Right.
of course. And so Reverend Hart, the dad, was a divine healer, and he didn't believe in hospitals and doctors. So when Ralph was crushed and run over, had brain damage and everything, they took him home, and they prayed, and people came from all over the world to pray with him, and he called his congregation the Saints. And he said that the saints would pray the prayer of faith, and that my husband would be healed. And sure enough, he was healed.
Wow.
And so a little bit of that mentality of that brain damage, I think, stayed with him through my marriage. But he was a powerful preacher.
I think there's many a wife that probably have that sentiment as well.
I'm sure they do. Yeah, for sure.
So what was the next milestone in your life then after you got married?
Well, my father, we married in September, and my husband had a job. He was a good musician. He had a job at Southern Aircraft Factory. Mm-hmm. He was, back in those days, they called him a lead job, but it was a management job. And he was brilliant with equipment and everything to do with engines and machines. So I decided to get a job at American Airlines. And in those days, you could get a job almost 12, 13 years old. They didn't care about your age, you know. So I had a very serious appendicitis attack, and we were traveling in the evangelistic work by spring, and he would turn over and say, "Oh, God, heal her," and go back to sleep. And I'm suffering all night long. He would not take me to a doctor.
Right.
So anyway, when we finally got back to Dallas, and I had an emergency situation where I had to have my appendix out, and then after that was done, we went out on the road full time, and we covered every church in the United States of America. And I finally gave him my diamond rings to trade. He wanted a big tent, and he wanted a truck, and he didn't have the money. So I gave him my wedding rings to trade for the tent, and then I gave him, I had beautiful jewelry. And then we bought the truck and the 2,000 or 3,000 chairs and the big tent, and we traveled as evangelists in the big trucks. And I will never, ever forget the first time that we got back. In those days, it was called a trailer.
Right.
Instead of a mobile home now.
Right.
Yeah, and so we got our first trailer. And, of course, the car and the trailer didn't have any air conditioning. And I played 17 instruments, and my husband was an excellent guitar player. But I did teach him the sevenths, the minors, the diminished chords. He didn't know that. He just knew, C, E, G, or C, F, G. So we worked together, and I trained the band. We had a band with us always. And we had healing lines, and thousands of people came. And, of course, the attraction was our music.
Right.
But he was a fantastic speaker.
Now, you kind of skipped over this real quick, but how did you learn to play 17 instruments?
You know what? It's a good story. I was somehow started on the piano, and my mom knew how to play the piano, but she never in my lifetime would play for me. And my dad, he played trumpet, and he would never play for us. The spring that just before we went out on a full-time evangelistic field, my daddy was working at American Airlines, and he was head of the X-ray division where they X-ray the parts to the planes.
Right.
And a 400-pound door broke and fell on his foot and broke his baby toe.
Ouch.
And it sent a blood clot to the brain.
Really?
And he lived about 4 weeks and couldn't speak and passed away at 48 years old.
Wow.
So I was very grieved to leave my mom, but Ralph, he told me, and I was very vulnerable then, and he said, we have to do this because this is what God wants us to do, So we went out in the evangelistic field, and that's when we got the trailer with no air. We like to die in Florida with the humidity.
So you traveled all over the country,
All
correct?
over the country. Mm-hmm.
So there was a time then that you guys took that glamorous on-the-road life
Right.
and decided that you were going to start a church, correct?
Right.
And where did you decide to do that?
Well, when we were traveling on the evangelistic field, not knowing what a blessing it is to give of yourself and your money to people, and to the Lord and to the Lord's work, these women in Arkansas would come up to me and give me $5 or $10 for the ministry, and I'd say, no, you, because if they looked poor, I would give it back, and I'd say, you need it worse than we do. And we were eating, back then you could get hamburgers for a nickel, and we could get 6 for a quarter, and gasoline was 10 cents a gallon. So we just kept traveling, and money kept coming in, and we kept buying more and more equipment. Finally ended up in Detroit, Michigan, and we were having this enormous tent revival. And during the tent revival, the people started coming to us to plead with us to stay in Detroit and open a church.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to take a quick break here for a word from our sponsors. This is Stephen Jacobs with the Jacobs Ladder Show. You can find our shows at JacobsLadderShow.com. Page down at the bottom, they're all there. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsors and then 2 and 2. There's eating out and there's dining. Fine dining at the Barrymore. At the Barrymore, you dine on gourmet food in an elegant setting with outstanding service for a fraction of what you would expect. The Barrymore is located in the Royal Resort at 99 Convention Center Drive. You can experience the Barrymore Sunday through Thursday from 5:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. and on Friday and Saturday from 5:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, there's live entertainment at the Barrymore. For reservations, call 702-407-5303. And if you really want to take a look at this elegant restaurant before you arrive, go to www.barrymorelv.com. That's www.barrymorelv.com. Barrymore's. It's more than eating out. It's dining.
Let me introduce you to the Las Vegas Distillery. It is the first artesian craft distillery in the history of Nevada. They manufacture in the traditional way from grain to bottle. Their handcrafted spirits include vodka, gin, rum, whiskey, bourbon, moonshine, and the house specialty created in Las Vegas called the Rumski, a blend of rum and whiskey. The Las Vegas Distillery uses grains grown in Nevada by Winnemucca Farms. They distill in small batches and are an open distillery. Come and take a tour Monday through Saturday at 7330 Eastgate Road, Suite number 100 in Henderson. You can go to the website www.lasvegasdistillery.com. Support our local businesses. Remember the Las Vegas Distillery for your events, office, and private parties. Think local, drink local. The Las Vegas Distillery.
And this is Stephen Jacobs with the Jacobs Ladder Show. Welcome back. This segment of our show is sponsored by the Distillery. The distillery, Las Vegas Distillery, is the first distillery ever in the state of Las Vegas. You should go out there and visit with George Reyes and take the tour. It's a terrific place, okay? We are talking with Dr. Toni Hart, who is ordained minister, and she is the principal owner of the Hart Mansion here in Las Vegas, where we've had many famous people stay and visit, and films have been shot there. It's quite a place, and we're going to get to that later. But Dr. Hart, just before we go on, I really would like to know, 17 instruments is not something that somebody just, that's quite a craft to be able to do that. So how did you learn to play 17 different
Well, I
instruments?
started with the keyboards, and my mom took me to this wonderful classical music teacher, and she had polio, and she was on crutches, gorgeous lady, taught out of her home, and I started taking classical music lessons, and it was just too boring. And I didn't need to learn that, I thought, which I'm sorry, I didn't, because I could play by ear.
Sure.
Anything I could hear, I could play it.
Wow.
So it started with the piano, and then my dad bought me an accordion. That was the 40-pounder that was so heavy back in those days. And then he bought me a banjo, and I played that. That's how it started. And then when we went on the evangelistic field, my husband realized that I wasn't a genius musician at all by any means, but I could just play everything: banjo, mandolin, bass fiddle, organ, piano, vibraharp. I had still have the beautiful vibraharp. And then it got to the place that we found something very unique and unusual, and it was called cowbells. And recently, CBS came out and filmed me on their show, Bill Guy's show, and I did the cowbells. And then I had sleigh bells, and so I had this one particular song that I would play, go from one instrument to another, usually 8 or 10 instruments in that one song. It was quite a show, and people loved it, so that's what I did,
So along the way here, when did the children start to arrive?
I was married 5 years before I had Linda, and I wanted so much to have a child, and I was so thrilled when I got that little black-headed doll. And she was my first. And then later I had Larry, my singer, Grammy winner, who's a fabulous musician as well. And then my third child is Gary, who was the drummer in my band. And Larry and I taught him how to play drums. And he became very, very good. So the three of us traveled. It made me very sad when we were living in Nashville, because Linda and Larry and I were signed up to the House of Cash to write for Johnny Cash's company.
Right.
And then Linda, when she was 23 years old, decided to go with the Christy Minstrels. So she left my band, and I was grieved, and I cried a lot, but, she wanted to go. And then I'll tell you a funny story, Stephen. She traveled with them for a long, long time all over the country. And then she called me up and she said, "Mother, guess what?" And I said, "What?" She said, "I just was interviewed by Bette Midler." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Yes," that she went through 600 singers, but she chose me. I said, "Linda, that's wonderful. What are you going to do, honey?" She said, "Oh, I'm going to be a harlot." And I said, "Oh, my God, Linda, don't do that. You'll ruin her reputation." I thought she's going to be a harlot. And I never heard the word harlot. So she said, no, Mother. A harlot is a backup singer.
It's too funny. So that would be alarming to a mother.
I was pretty upset, yeah.
So, and we're really going to, Carolyn's going to interview Linda, who's got quite famous in her own right. But let's go on with you and your career. So, your son that won the Grammy, he became quite famous too as doing.
Yes, he did.
And how did he start out? Gary told me this story one time when Larry has this great talent for creating things. And how did that start?
Well, Larry was born the worst known asthmatic in the United States.
Wow.
And we had him to the Fenton Rum Clinic in Detroit hundreds of times, and he was constantly in the hospital, and they constantly said he wasn't going to make it. Almost died in Pennsylvania, nearly died in L.A. and Dallas and Detroit and Europe. So we were grieved. And I kept saying to the Lord, if you'll heal my son, I'll be a missionary to Africa or China. Just please heal my son. Well, that wasn't happening. So we had to get a private tutor for Larry in Detroit because of the horrible weather, and he would get pneumonia, so we couldn't take him to a public school because of the bad weather.
Right.
So we had a private tutor, and one day the private tutor called me off to the side, and he said, Mrs. Hart, I need to talk to you. And I said, what's wrong? He said, it's your son. And I said, what's wrong with him? He said, he's bordering on geniushood. He said he's in the 2nd grade. He's doing math, 7th grade math, 7th grade reading. And he said, it's unbelievable what he's doing. And I said, well, that's a good thing, isn't it? And he said, yeah, but he said, you just need to watch him. Well, I never heard of watching a genius or anything, you know. And I said, okay, we'll watch him. So as he grew older, we had already recorded Linda at a very early age, 4 or 5 years old, and then we recorded Larry when he was about 4 or 5 years old. And finally, I just decided living in Michigan was going to take his life because he just couldn't get well, and lived in hospitals, and he lived on prednisone and cortisone all the time. And so I packed up some things and took one of our cars and put a trailer on the back of it and went to L.A., and we had a home there that was vacant. It was a rental home, and we moved in there, and Linda and Larry were in school. I was able to put Larry in public school at that time. And then, of course, Gary was a small little boy. Long story short, we finally ended up going back to Detroit, back and forth, actually,
right.
you know. And then when we got into Nashville, Larry was 10 years old. And that's when we signed with the House of Cash. And I was reading my Bible one day, and I came across this incredible story about this clown-type person in the Bible that entertained the kings. And I said, Larry, God spoke to my heart, you're going to be on Hee Haw as a comedian. And he said, what on earth are you talking about, Mother? I said, I'm taking you in for an interview. I took him in for the interview, and he got the part. And he was on Hee Haw for 3.5 years. And one day we came in out of our Silver Eagle bus, and Sam Lavella was the producer, and he called me, and he said, we need to talk. So I said, maybe you're going to get fired, Larry. I don't know what's going on, you know. So we get to the office of Hee Haw, and Sam Lavella met with us, and he said, we have a problem. I said, what is it? He said, your son gets more fan mail than Junior Samples and Roy Clark. And he said, Junior Samples only went to the 2nd grade, but he can count money and letters. And he said he's very jealous of your son. Can you believe that? So that was quite an experience. And then, as I said, the 3 of us were signed, and I got a hit song through the House of Cash. And through that hit song, Johnny gave me enough money to buy a Cadillac. I needed a new Cadillac back then. And I still have it today. Yeah, 1990. Yeah, it's my keepsake.
There you go. Well, do you? I'll tell you what. There's a cut here that we have of you and the family, and we're gonna run this right now.
I'll tell of the Savior. I'll tell of His favor. I'll tell it, Lord, wherever I go. 'Cause I count every blessing as I go on confessing, and I'll tell it, Lord, wherever I go. Though life's uncertain and I cannot understand, but thank Him and trust Him, and I'll praise Him while I can. And I'll tell it, excel it, just let all voices swell it. I'll tell it, Lord, wherever I go. I know Him, adore Him, a good life to show Him, and I'll tell it, Lord, wherever I go. He's nearest, He's clearest, and in my life He's dearest, and I'll tell it, Lord, wherever I go. What He is to you, maybe you can't see, but this one thing I know, He's everything to me, 'cause He saved me, He raised me forever. I will praise Him, and I'll tell it, wherever I go. Now if Satan oppress me, His grace will caress me, and I'll tell it, Lord, wherever I go. Now when troubles depress me, well, He won't fail to bless me, and I'll tell it, Lord, wherever I go. Now if I was dying with can be there to meet me there, that I'll go where he's prepared, and I'll tell it, Lord, wherever I go. Tell it wherever I go. Tell it wherever I go. Tell it wherever I go.
And Dr. Hart, that was you playing and singing, and as I understand it, that was a one-take deal. You played it, you took it, there was no great sound to wall or mixing or anything else. That's what it was. You playing and singing, that was your number, correct?
Pretty much, yeah, that's true.
You are. Why does that not surprise me? Yet you are a talented lady, and I will tell you, we're going to come back and talk some more with this very talented lady right after we get a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back in 2 and 2. There's eating out and there's dining. Fine dining at the Barrymore. At the Barrymore, you dine on gourmet food in an elegant setting with outstanding service for a fraction of what you would expect. The Barrymore is located in the Royal Resort at 99 Convention Center Drive. You can experience the Barrymore Sunday through Thursday from 5:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. and on Friday and Saturday from 5:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, there's live entertainment at the Barry. For reservations, call 702-407-5303. And if you really want to take a look at this elegant restaurant before you arrive, go to www.barrymorelv.com. That's www.barrymorelv.com. Barrymore's. It's more than eating out. It's dining. The Las Vegas Distillery is the first distillery in the history of Nevada. The Las Vegas Distillery spirits are handcrafted from grains to bottle. Vodka, rum, whiskey, bourbon, moonshines, and the house specialty, Rumski, a blend of our rum and whiskey. 93% of all ingredients come from Nevada's Winnemucca farms. Please come by and visit the Las Vegas Distillery's 2 custom-made Copper Angel stills. You are welcome anytime. Located at 7330 Eastgate Road, Suite 100, Henderson, Nevada 89011. Or call 702-629-7534 or go visit www.lasvegasdistillery.com. Come by and taste our new Grandma's Apple Pie Moonshine. Think locally, drink locally. The Las Vegas Distillery. And this is Stephen Jacobs with the Jacobs Ladder Show. We're here every Tuesday from noon to 2, one guest, 1 hour. And this segment is brought to you by Barrymore's Fine Dining in the resort downtown, 99 Convention Center Drive. Go into the Barrymore. It's a wonderful atmosphere. It's wonderful food and absolutely superb service. Okay, so I'm back with Dr. Toni Hart. Dr. Hart, you've led a fascinating life.
Yes, I have, and my family has as well. So I taught my children to play. I gave them education in music. And then in Detroit, I had a music school, and I had full-time radio and TV shows all my life.
So you're not a stranger to this microphone, then?
Not at all. No.
So when did you had actually a church in Detroit, did you not?
We did. We opened up, as I said, in the big tent revival, and there was thousands of people coming, only standing room, and we sold our albums like crazy. They were in love with the music. And then we bought a theater for the church, and we remodeled it and made it into an enormous church. And actually, we had 5,000 members to the church.
Wow.
And it was huge. And in my Sunday school class, I taught the youth, the young people, the teenagers, and some were in high school. Some had just begun in college, but I had over 300 in my own class. And then I could run the office, and we would sometimes go to Europe or Israel or someplace,
right,
on trips. But we did really do a lot of recordings in Detroit and, of course, Los Angeles and Nashville.
Okay.
But as I said, we had this big church. We co-pastored, my husband and I, for 20 some odd years. And then he divorced me and married our secretary. That was interesting. And it hurt, but it was the best thing ever happened to me, actually.
A lot of times what seems to be a curveball turns out to be a direction that you're supposed to go in, isn't it?
Right. It was, and what was really strange, my husband had moved the children and I from L.A. to Nashville for a recording contract, another one. And that's when Larry got on Hee Haw, and when he became so famous, we were at that time not only writing for the House of Cash, but we were traveling in a big Silver Eagle bus doing state and county fairs and concerts. Concerts were 20,000 people. And state and county fairs, usually those would seat like 5,000.
Right.
And that was the good old days. We really loved the state and county fairs, and they paid the best money. So through that, Showman's League of America invited me to perform at the MGM Hotel in Las Vegas in 1976. So I loaded up the boys and my band. Linda was traveling with Bette Midler, and we loaded up the bus, and we came to Las Vegas to sing at the MGM. And we were in the hotel, and my son Larry could breathe. He didn't use his spray. He was not on the cortisone and the prednisone. And I said, if you're healed, Larry, and you can breathe, this is where God wants us, because I don't have to go to China. I don't have to go to Russia or anyplace else or Africa. We'll move here. And on television, Stephen, I saw a condominium called Regency Towers.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Larry and I always loved to hunt houses. We were both decorators, and we could turn anything, a goose into a queen almost, because we were decorators. We loved to do it. So we went to see the condo,
mm-hmm.
and it was a new building, and nobody was there but the mob, hotel owners.
Right.
Wonderful, wonderful men. They couldn't have been nicer to us. And there was only a few units sold, and I bought one on the 18th floor. And we got in the bus after we performed for that week or two, whatever it was. We went back to Detroit to cut a new album and to do the radio and TV shows.
Right.
And while I was there, I said to my husband, if you don't stop treating us so mean, I'm going to take the boys and move to Las Vegas. And this is what he said. He said, I don't care what you do. So I said, okay. So I called up the real estate lady, and I said, I will take that condo. And I said, put the carpet in. I'll be there in a couple of weeks. And that's how I moved to Las Vegas 37 years ago.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so you didn't stay in that condo for very long, though, did you? Or did you?
I stayed in there. We lived in there, the boys and I, for 8 years.
Uh-huh.
And one Sunday, Larry and Gary both had little girlfriends back then, and this was 1977 now. And we were driving around the city, and Larry's little girlfriend said, Dr. Hart, I'd like to show you this incredible house. You love the South. You're a Southern lady. You'd like this house. So she said, go over on 6th Street. We'd never been there before. So we drove by 6th Street, and here's this long, white Southern house, just lovely. And it was two old houses joined together. So we got out of the car, walked in, and in between the two houses was a dirt floor. They put the roof on, but
Right.
they had not finished the work.
Right.
And we didn't know the stories of all this illegal man that was living there and problems. So we get in, and there's two people in the living room. And I said, is this house for sale? And they said, you better believe it's for sale. Do you want to buy it? I said, yeah, how much is it? They said, well, to start with, you have to pay the $100,000 bail bond for this man. And then, and then it had two banknotes, of course, one on the north house and one on the south
Sure.
house. So I called my husband, and I got him to come out, and I said, this is perfect for my music school for underprivileged children. And he said, okay, I'll come look at it. He came. We paid the $100,000 to this attorney, who actually was a crook, and we got the house, but the city made me wait a year. They wouldn't let me have it. I don't know how they had that power, but they did. And so the North House and the South House, as I said, both had banknotes. So my two sons and I went in there, not knowing that Elvis had ever stayed there with the former owner,
Right.
and not knowing all the stories about the history of the place. And Stephen, back then underneath that house was dead cats and dead dogs.
Oh, brother.
Old houses. And we pulled those out, and it was 112 degrees in the summer. We were putting them in trash bags. And different friends, 2 or 3 of them, sent their kids over to help us. They felt sorry for us. And we worked and worked and worked on that house. And then finally, when my husband filed for divorce, we had to leave the house and go to Detroit for a 2-year divorce. And during that time, we got burnt out. They burnt my house down.
Here in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. It was tragic. I cried and grieved. The first fire, we did have some insurance. The second fire, we had no insurance. And my attorney and the contractor stole all the money from the first fire and got me into 8 lawsuits and 10 liens. And I just said, God will help us. And we claimed the land and the dirt for the glory of God. And he, some way, somehow, helped me build it back. And my sons helped me.
You've been through some challenges in that mansion, haven't you?
Yeah. Boy, have I ever. It's 30,000 square feet, has a basement, 8 bedrooms, 13 bathrooms. We've done a lot of movies and a lot of incredible projects.
Now, there was as we've talked about, there was the South House and the North House with the roof they put over between them, but everything in between was as is. So tell me a little bit about when you decided to physically join these houses with that marvelous entryway.
Well, we had started the remodeling stages, my sons and I, and they were young kids, but we were doing the remodeling. And like I said, when the divorce started, I had to go to Detroit. And when we got back, we started from scratch. And that's when I found out that I had 8 lawsuits and 10 liens. They had charged so much material to me for other jobs. And by the help and grace of God, we just kept on and built it back. You know, one funny story, I'll hurry because you're getting ready to go for a break. We went to Washington, D.C. for inaugural for Ronald Reagan. And I told my sons, I said, as long as we're in Detroit, I'm going to take you to Washington because it's history for you boys.
Right.
And I said, we'll never get to do this again because I'll never come back to Detroit. So we went to Washington, and guess who we met? Marie Osmond's mom.
Oh, really?
What a wonderful Christian, lovely lady. And I told her my story, and I was in tears or brokenhearted over my divorce. And she said, I'll send help. Don't worry. So when we got back out to Las Vegas, she sent 2 little Mormon boys on bicycles with their little helmets on. And they got on the roof with us, and we were spreading 4x8 sheeting, my 2 sons and I.
Right.
And they got up there and helped us. And about 2 or 3 days goes by, and they said, we're worn out. We can't do this anymore, Miss Hart. You have to do it yourself. So that's how it started. Now it ended up to be Heartland.
So you were up there on the roof with the 4x8 sheets, putting the roofing down, huh?
Yeah.
You are an amazing lady. We're going to take a break here and go to our sponsors. This is Stephen Jacobs with the Jacobs Ladder Show. We're here every Tuesday from noon to 2, 1 guest, 1 hour, and right after this hour, we're going to have your daughter, Linda.
Wonderful.
Carolyn's going to talk to your daughter, Linda. But anyway, we'll be right back with more conversation with the really fascinating Dr. Toni Hart right after these words from our sponsor. We'll be back in 2 and 2.
Let me introduce you to the Las Vegas Distillery. It is the first artesian craft distillery in the history of Nevada. They manufacture in the traditional way from grain to bottle. Their handcrafted spirits include vodka, gin, rum, whiskey, bourbon, moonshine, and the house specialty created in Las Vegas called the Rumsky, a blend of rum and whiskey. The Las Vegas Distillery uses grains grown in Nevada by Winnemucca Farms. They distill in small batches and are an open distillery. Come and take a tour Monday through Saturday at 7330 Eastgate Road, Suite number 100 in Henderson. You can go to their website, www.lasvegasdistillery.com. JacobsLadderShow.com. Support our local businesses. Remember the Las Vegas Distillery for your events, office, and private parties. Think local, drink local. The Las Vegas Distillery.
There's eating out and there's dining. Fine dining at the Barrymore. At the Barrymore, you dine on gourmet food in an elegant setting with outstanding service for a fraction of what you would expect. The Barrymore is located in the Royal Resort at 99 Convention Center Drive. You can experience the Barrymore Sunday through Thursday from 5:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. and on Friday and Saturday from 5:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, there's live entertainment at the Barrymore. For reservations, call 702-407-5303. And if you really want to take a look at this elegant restaurant before you arrive, go to www.barrymorelv.com. That's www.barrymorelv.com. Barrymore's. It's more than eating out. It's dining. And welcome back to the Jacobs Ladder Show. This is Stephen Jacobs. And our show segment is brought to you by the Dispensary. The Dispensary is at Tropicana and Eastern, and they have really cool jazz on Friday and Saturdays evenings from 10 to 2. The Dispensary, which has been owned by a lady for 37 years. So when you go in there, tell Adele that Carolyn and I sent you in, or you might even bump into us there. So we're back with Dr. Toni Hart, and speaking of the mansion, Doctor, and putting it together and everything. Now, that's all amazing what you did, but the interior of that mansion is unbelievable. We attended some events. Gary had us out there for a private viewing through the place. Tell us about, because I know Larry is quite talented at decorating and taking, as you say, what was it that you said was great, taking a goose egg and making a queen out of it? Or
Well, Larry, when he was a little boy, he was 12, 13 years old. In Nashville, I started a company called Baby Doll Shoes. And I could get the shoes for $75 a pair, and then Larry would rhinestone them. And back then, there were no rhinestone shoes anywhere. We went to all the fine department stores and shoe stores, and nobody had them. And he made shoes for Dolly Parton, Bette Midler, Ginger Rogers, Debbie Reynolds, my beautiful Broadway baby, which is my daughter. He made shoes for her and me, and we sold them for like $250 a pair. But the work was tedious.
Sure.
And because Larry was always in a hospital bed, he wanted something to do, so he would glue rhinestones on toilet brushes. He would glue rhinestones on your combs, your brushes, your billfold, anything he could find. He was gluing in the bus while we were setting up the sound system and the musical instruments at the state and county fairs, or in a church, wherever. So long story short, after we got into the shoe business there, and singing still, traveling all over the world, and we moved to Las Vegas, and I got this big house, and then Larry helped me decorate. Mm-hmm. And he has done a spectacular job. He can't sew, but he does everything with a glue gun. So CBS got interested in that, and also Larry was on a New York show that he demonstrated. He can take like an old evening gown that you buy at Salvation Army, right, cut it up, and glue it on a pillow and make it worth $500 or $1,000. He can make drapes. He made costumes for our show at South Point a couple of years ago with a glue gun. Mm-hmm. And then when he had the show with Michael Jackson called Sisterella, Michael was the executive producer of Sisterella for Larry, and we went to Germany. And while we were in Germany, Larry had a Escada and St. John as part of the sponsor. Right. And then Escada would deliver a $10,000, $12,000 dress to the hotel, and Larry would sit on the floor and cut it up with scissors, and I'm about to scream, not knowing what in the world, is he crazy, he's lost his mind, and he would glue it back together with his own design. It was phenomenal. Amazing. Isn't that amazing?
Well, you were told a long time ago he was a genius, right?
Yeah, he was. And he is.
He is.
And great mind. And he made all the bedspreads in Heartland. And he did all the costumes for Sisterella. And we were hoping to open that show at the Hilton. But then when Michael passed away, that, of course, didn't happen. But we're still working on Sisterella. But Larry did a marvelous job in writing it, producing it, and directing it, and won 8 NAACP awards. He had 12 nominations. He won 8. I think he's the first white man that ever won an NAACP award, which is pretty great for us.
Yeah, terrific.
We were happy.
Well, and people are coming to Las Vegas, and they can come by and see the mansion, can't they?
We've cut it down now. If they want a tour, it's 30 people minimum. I do a lot of Red Hat ladies luncheons.
Okay. And
we used to do full-time tours with USA Hosts of America, and they sold their buses. But we did the movie Casino last year. We did the Disney Muppets with CeeLo Green. And we've done a lot of movies there and a lot of corporate dinners and had some incredible guests.
But when they come to Las Vegas and they're looking to get married, they can book their wedding.
Absolutely.
Correctly.
I'm a doctor of theology. I graduated from a Methodist college in Nashville, Tennessee. I got a BA degree, Master of Theology, and Doctor of Divinity. And I worked in chapels from 1986 to 1996, plus what I was doing at Heartland. And I was doing over 100 weddings a week. And the last Valentine's Day in 1996 that I worked for Candlelight, I did 72 weddings in 19 hours. 72 weddings. And the owner was saying, "Talk faster."
Well, but do you have a website that they can go to?
We
see
do.
The Heartland?
It's heartlandmansionlv.com. And then our design center is botanicalv.com. So, yes, we'd love them to look us up and love to do their wedding and renewals.
Right. And you also do, like you said, corporate parties
we do.
There and private parties if you've got enough people to justify that. And you take care of everything, don't you? I mean, you could take care of the catering, you take care of all of it.
Everything. Right? I not only have booked them for years, I perform the wedding, I order the food, I take my big Ford Explorer, I pick up all the liquor and all the food, all the groceries, and deliver it to the caterer. We use outside catering. We don't do the cooking at Heartland.
Well, and I want people to get a little bit of an idea of Heartland and what it looks like, but there is actually a pool that's totally enclosed with a stage at one end. I mean, this is not even part of the house. It's all covered and so forth.
That pool was built in 1948 for Esther Williams. And she was a guest of the former owner, who was Mr. Kozloff, who owned the Frontier.
Oh, okay.
And back in those days, he had Marilyn Monroe, Ronald Reagan, and he had all the... I have a list. I wish I'd have brought it for you, Stephen, of the list of the guests back in those days. Then when I took it over, we had Engelbert, Willie Nelson, Ginger Rogers, Debbie Reynolds, Michael Jackson, everybody you can think of, Gene Simmons... it's a list.
Just too many, too long.
Unbelievable. Yeah. We've had guests,
and it's probably got just some of the things that I observed there. It's the front room has got the most incredible Nutcracker collection I have ever seen in my life.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that's quite a collection. Then we have the big Fabergé egg room, full of Fabergé eggs, and we have the big chest that came from Barbra Streisand. And there's so much history there. Every single piece of furniture has a story. So I told these meetings last week I had with some businessmen. I said, there's 2 rust-colored chairs in the living room? They said, yeah. I said, I can put those on eBay or Craigslist tomorrow and get $5,000 a piece for them. And they said, why? I said, because Sharon Stone sat in them with no underwear on.
Also every room is a delight to go through and be in.
Thank you.
In the dining room there is a beautiful piece that Larry made, I believe, and it has to do with the Barbie dolls. And
yes, yeah, he made that for one of the hotels during their wedding convention. And he put a Barbie doll in there with a groom husband, which is adorable. And I'm going to try to sell that, I think, on eBay or one of the networks.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's funny is we had the cutest little Barbie doll, and he was a black preacher. And everybody wants to see that display when they come for a party, you know. And that little preacher wouldn't stand up. He kept falling over. So I said, get the preacher out of there. We'll just have the bride and groom, you know. He just wouldn't cooperate.
And then there is the just off of the main reception hall to the right, to the left there is a room there that has displayed all of your awards and presidential citations, and pictures of all of the people that have been in the mansion with you and Linda, and it's an amazing room.
Yes, thank you very much. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I got a star on Las Vegas Boulevard. It's in front of the MGM.
Okay.
Yeah, they did Rich Little, Wayne Newton, and then me, and now everybody's getting one, it seems. But that's an honor for me. And then we got a call that they wanted to make me a lady, and I said, I thought I was a lady.
I was going to say, you don't need anybody to tell you that.
And he said, yeah. And then the gentleman said, well, we're going to make you a dame. I said, well, I'm a dame too. So they did crown me Prince of Italy or something, and it was fabulous. And my daughter came in for that. My 2 sons, Knights of Malta.
Knights of Malta. Huh? Well, in your career also, and we didn't mention it before, after we came out of listening to the song that you did, but you've got records, 78s, 45s. You've got 26 albums that you've got. You're into the CD technology now. You've got quite a history, young lady.
Yeah, I sure have. It's been a long haul.
Yeah. And
I loved every step of the way. It's been hard. You know, I used to pull house trailers and drive big trucks when we were on the road. And the old saying, been there, done that, you know, we sure have done it.
Built houses and rebuilt them.
And churches, yeah.
Churches, and
yes,
put up tents and tucking them down.
Yeah. I knew how to use a sledgehammer, and I weighed 95 pounds.
I bet you do. I wouldn't want to tangle with you, I'll tell you that.
Oh, my. I'm not that tough.
Well, the Heartland Mansion is a beautiful addition that you brought to Las Vegas, and the gift of your sons that are now here in Las Vegas and all that they do. You know, I see Gary quite often around town, and what a fabulous guy he is. And
yes, he is.
I've been able to meet and talk with Larry, and you know, just going through the mansion, you can see what a talent that man is.
Thank you
Have
so
Glue
much.
Gun will travel, right?
Yeah, there you go. Glue Gun is his middle name.
Yeah, and then,
he did the Rachel Ray show.
Yeah.
And she loved what he taught the ladies on that show.
Yeah.
But we appreciate so much you and your beautiful wife, and thank you for having us on your show.
Well, it's been a privilege, and I will tell you that I encourage everybody, if you're coming to Las Vegas, make sure that you get to the Heartland Mansion and get yourself married there. And if you're doing a corporate event or doing any kind of a big event that you would really like to do up terrifically here and uniquely in Las Vegas, that you go to the Heartland Mansion. That's the place to do it.
We love the corporates too.
Yeah, well,
they're great.
Well, hopefully we'll help you build a little more of that business. So not that I think that you need it all that much, because it's a great place. Thank you so much, Dr. Hart, for being with us. Okay, and we really enjoyed it. We're going to have Linda on in the next hour, so we can talk all about your beautiful
fabulous.
daughter. Okay. Yeah. This is Stephen Jacobs with the Jacobs Ladder Show. We are here every Tuesday from noon to 2. We have 2 hours show and one guest 1 hour. And thank you for listening in, all of you across the state and across the county and across the country and around the world. We appreciate you. Take care, and we'll see you next week here. Take care. Bye-bye.